r/AskReddit. Serious dads who left and never came back. Why? Mine is kind of odd, I guess. I didn't 100% choose to leave, but I didn't pursue it as hard as I could have. I dated a woman for a few months, Nov to Jan. She told me sometime in early January that she was pregnant. We decided together that she would get rid of it as the relationship was pretty new and really we only saw each other once every other week or so. I gave her money for the abortion, around $600 bucks. And then we just stopped talking. It felt like things were just fading off anyway. I stopped calling her, she stopped calling me. Roughly 6 months later I met my now wife and we've been together 14 years. I get a call about 18 months after the woman and I broke up. She decided not to have the abortion and we have an 18-month-old baby boy. I'm skeptical. She's not asking for anything. She just wants to let me know. Not knowing what to do, I don't call her, and again she doesn't call me for another year. This time she calls because again she doesn't want child support or anything from me. She's moving across the country with her boyfriend and needs me to sign some paperwork releasing parental rights or something like that. I tell her I'm not signing anything without a paternity test. She says she understands, then doesn't call me again until about 5 years later. At this point I'm married, we have a house, but no kids. She says my son would like to meet me. I tell her again I'm not doing anything without a paternity test. She says okay and pays for the whole deal. I show up to get my cheeks swabbed and she's there with him. There's no denying he looks exactly like me. I stupidly have gone through all this without telling my wife because to be honest I didn't believe her. Test comes back positive. I tell my wife, explain that the whole thing happened about 6 months before we got together. She's upset but we persevere. We arranged to have some visits with my son and come to find out that the guy she was living with at the time we were dating signed the birth paperwork saying he was the father. I don't know the details of that situation. She claims that this guy is horrible and she wants to get my son away from him, but kind of just sounds like it's a relationship that didn't end well. I have my kid every other weekend for a few months. It's a 45-minute drive to pick him up and drop him off, so we get a lot of chances to talk. I ask him about the other guy, how he is, etc. He says he's completely fine, doesn't sound reluctant doing so. We continue our visits for a while and my wife and I consider pursuing custody, even knowing that it's going to cost us a ton of money we don't have. On top of it, her and this other guy have been doing alternating weeks for 8 years. This guy has raised him as his own kid fully knowing he wasn't. I really didn't feel I should be trying to slide into the middle of that. He was happy and healthy. She decided she was going to move even further away, started calling less and less and eventually just stopped. Admittedly, I didn't pursue it too hard. I just didn't feel like I should get in the way of it. 6 months later she called me around Christmas and told me he would like an Xbox One for a present. I haven't heard from her since. He's a good sweet kid and I do hope I get to sit him down and explain my side of things at some point. I don't owe any back child support because as far as the state is concerned the other guy's the father. Technically wasn't there. Non-relationship drunken stupor 1/2 night ice stand. Countermeasures failed. She informs me she's pregnant and in no uncertain terms will not get an abortion. Familial pressure and religious reasons. I acknowledge her decision and my lack of choice in the matter. In response to her inquiry I clearly inform her I will not be a father to this child and will not support my inability to have a decision in such a matter. Trigger warning. Off the bat she threatens me with the state, to wit I inform her I will under no uncertain terms spend a good of our time in court on the matter. Months later she informs me she is giving the child up for adoption. Her family friends are unable to conceive and would make for a good home to a healthy baby. Obviously this requires the father to legally give up rights to the child. I'll lawyer up and I'm reluctant to acknowledge legally in any way the child is mine. As such, paternity is not chemically established. The paperwork I sign is only valid in the adoption process. I'm doubtful because I do not expect her to go through with the adoption. The state requires the mother maintain custody of the child for a minimum number of days in what I speculate is a psychological manipulation to bond the mother/child pair. She has the kid. I, under duress from attorneys, sign the release forms. As soon as she's got them, she declares she's not giving the child up for adoption. Surprise. 2 years later I get notice of an automatic process from the state triggering hearings and court proceedings to establish financial support. I lawyer up again expecting the worst. The mother closed the proceedings and removed herself from state support prior to proceedings. I have not heard anything since and have no inclination to meet or be a father to the child in any way. I fully expect sometime around driver's license or passport time that my name, which I do not know for certain, on a birth certificate will trigger some question and perhaps the archetypal "who am I?" quest to begin. Edit. I knew the mother for some good time and she was fully aware I have always been adamantly against having children. I had been trying to get a vasectomy for some time and was not successful years after this story until I realized a simple lie about having the minimum number of children satisfactory to the doctor's perceived requirement got the doctor to comply with my wishes. I'm sure this will be buried, but it seems like it'll help me get it off my chest. I very seriously dated a girl for about 2 years. First love type shit. Well, she was always crazy, like true mental issues that really showed up the last year of it. I then found out she had been cheating on me essentially the whole relationship, so I broke up with her. She stalked me, and basically all the standard crazy stuff. Fast forward, I get a call. I'm pregnant. Panic set in, and I told her I couldn't be a parent with her and asked if she would consider aborting it. She said no. After 9 months I get a call asking for everything. I told her no, I can't. I was broke. I had just met my future wife and I was only 20. I knew I wouldn't be a good dad to this child, especially due to the hostility between her mother and I. I signed over all parental rights so she would leave me alone. Fast forward to present. I'm in an amazing marriage with an amazing woman. I have a 9-year-old daughter, but at least once a week I get fear about what I did, that one day this girl will show up saying I'm her dad and having to explain to my daughter, my family. I'm terrified of this one person who never has met me and may not even know I exist. I pray I never get that knock on the door. When and if you ever do get the knock on your door, hopefully you would have thought this through. Excuse my opinion, but I'd like to try and place myself in your shoes and see if this sounds reasonable to you. If you're sane/stable and the girl you were with is legitimately crazy, you gotta accept that it was partly your decision, as well as everything else. From the top down, if you are certain that you made the correct choice in not being with this woman because of her craziness/infidelity, then the other thing I would apologize for, speaking in your shoes hypothetically, is prioritizing my own life over your other unknown child. It's understandable and reasonable, but what pisses me off is when excuses are made, and parents who abandon their kids and then try to give advice on making another grave mistake, and quite frankly, honesty works better. Unless your unknown child also turned out to be off the spectrum. Then that would just suck, because you wouldn't get along, and yeah, guilt and stuff. But hey, that's life. If it turns out that your unknown child managed to land a good head on their shoulders and can think for themselves, then apologize. Tell them your excuses or reasons, and tell them no, that you know that. I thought I wouldn't be able to be a good dad to you because of the relationship between your mother and I, but I also wasn't ready to give up everything to work a dead-end job just to survive as a broken family. That's what I would want to hear from my BO father. I wouldn't want to hear more excuses, and especially not lectures about excuses when the person giving them to me uses them most for a situation not to be used in. Lol, I feel like /facipum is necessary here. Well, anyways, I've given as much understanding as I can to both sides. I pray that you do get that knock on your door, and that you're ready for it. I pray that you're ready to admit what you wanted, and why you wanted, and I pray that your unknown child can accept that. Or at the very least, come to accept it one day. It's like saying the words "I love you" instead of assuming that the person should know or understand. No. The abandoned kids who care about this type of stuff want to hear you speak the truth, even if it makes you feel really bad. I'm the mom in this situation. My ex-husband went out with his friends one night for guys night and did meth at a party. Our daughter was 1 when this happened. That was all it took for him to become addicted, and I tried to make it work for 2 more years, but tired of the constant lying and stealing and using rent and food money for drugs and all the weirdos that would be at our house. So I told him we needed to split. Our daughter was 3 by this time. So, we divorce semi-amicably and work out a joint custody agreement and agree on a child support amount. It was all very civil. 2 years later, daughter is 5. He meets his now wife, who is a heroin addict. The lying becomes worse. When he picked our daughter up for visits, he would just drop her at a random person's house and forget he had her that weekend. I would have to search her out, and luckily he would leave her with parents of his friends, so she was at least safe. Found out around this time that he was homeless. He's still homeless, by the way. He found out one time that his mother was watching her and broke into her house and assaulted her right in front of our daughter and pulled a knife on both of them and forced his mom to drive him to the ATM for money. Daughter was 7 at this time. He had taken his mom's phone apart and my kid figure out how to get it back together to call the cops. So, I took him back to court and got him put on supervised visits. It was important to me that he have a relationship with our daughter, and our daughter was a daddy's girl. I should mention here that up to this point, I've received 0 child support from him. Our daughter is 15 now. Since that night, when she was 7, she's seen her father a total of 5 times. All 5 times, he's been late, and he's left early, and at least 3 of those times he was quite obviously high. He's been in and out of jail numerous times in this period and has fathered another child with his wife and has given up custody of said child to wife's mother. He will get guilt-ridden every now and then and call our daughter or text her and keep that up for around a week or so, promising to see her, promising he'll call the next day, promising to let her see her brother, promising to send her a gift for her birthday or Christmas, which he has never done since we've been divorced. It wrecks my kid every time he remembers he has a daughter that he may like to talk to, and she does go to therapy for her abandonment issues. I don't need his child support. It would be nice to have for her to have a better college fund, but that's not going to happen. And, yes, I filed with the state. If he has a job, he quits it. If they find him, he moves. It's very frustrating. Meth has completely destroyed his life. He cannot, or does not want to, get sober. I do the best I can to keep my kid out of that mess, and I don't lie to her about anything about her father. He was a great guy and father before the drugs, but now he's just a complete mess. And, honestly, I think he stays away because he knows she doesn't need to be around any of that. The not paying child support is an FU to me, but that's okay. She knows she can't expect anything from him, and she knows to be wary of him if he just shows up, because he's done that before and asked her for money. My kid is awesome and she's resilient, but I know this thing with her father leaves a hole inside her that I can do nothing about. Typical story. I met a girl, we liked each other, had sex on the first date. She got pregnant. I was young, and she said she was on the pill. I learned my lesson about pulling out unless I'm wearing a condom, and then we moved in together. After a couple of months together it was obvious we weren't going to make it, so we split amicably, I thought, and talked once or twice a week after. Well, she stopped letting me come to ultrasounds and doctor's apts. Didn't want me to come to the parenting class she was taking with her, and around the 7-month mark she ceased all contact. Now, I knew when the due date was, so about a week before I started calling, her phone was disconnected. I messaged on Facebook, I emailed, I messaged her little sister and even her little sister's boyfriend, all trying to get in contact with her. Well, 2 weeks after the delivery I get a call from her. She said that the day after her and I slept together. I went away to Detroit to catch a football game that weekend. She had one last romp with her ex, and it was his. Obviously devastated I got off the phone. But we stayed friends on Facebook, and I watched this kid that should have been mine grow up. My mom asked me one day, about a year later, if I talked to her anymore or knew anything about the kid. So I pulled up my ex Facebook profile and my mother and I were dumbfounded. The child looked exactly like my mother and sister when they were the same age. To a friggin' T. Same hair, smile, eyes and chubby cheeks that every baby in my bloodline has. So, I go about trying to get back in contact with my ex. I message her in Facebook, call the old number and email again. Her little sister had blocked me by this point, so I couldn't even get in contact with her. All I could do was send her a message on Facebook outlining my concerns and that I wanted a paternity test because the baby looked like my kin and I had to be sure. I was raised big on family, so if I have progeny out there I want to be involved in their lives. Well, I didn't have to wait long for a reply. It came the next day and went a little something like this. I don't care if you think the child is yours or not. I have a good thing going here. She got back together with her ex, and I don't want anyone coming in and ruining our family. She's happy and healthy, so please stay away. I didn't know what to do. I asked advice from my parents and friends. Some said to leave it, others said to go after her, and my best friend said I had dodged a bullet. So I sat on it for another 2 years. By this point, seeing her pictures, I knew, my heart of hearts knew this was my child. So I messaged again, this time a little more forcefully, and told her I was demanding a paternity test. I sent pics of my mom, sister and myself as a baby as proof. I wanted to be involved in my child's life and I would take her to court if I had to. Her reply wasn't as cordial this time. If you try and break up my family I will tell you. She basically admitted she was mine daughter, that the reason why mommy ran away from you is that you're a bad man who was in jail for inappropriately touching little girls. I'll tell her you used to hit me and that you hit the other children you have, which I don't have any. I will totally ruin you in her eyes, so even if everything is settled after court she'll never want to see you again. I wasn't to be deterred. I talked to a close family friend who was a retired family court lawyer, handled my parents' custody issues over me, and she said the cost of the court, the therapy, the supervised visits and integration therapists, for making sure her transition was smooth accepting my family as hers, was going to cost me around $300,000. Over the 4 to 5 years we would be in court, not to mention back child support and other bills I would be retroactively responsible for. I wanted to forge ahead, so I went and talked to another lawyer who confirmed everything that was said to me by my family friend, and I didn't know what to do. I just knew I wanted to be involved in my daughter's life. So I go back on Facebook to talk to my ex about everything I had learned, and she has either blocked me now or deleted her Facebook. I drove out to where she lived and she had moved. She up and left with my child. I do not know where she went, and what was worse, I lost the only way of keeping track that my child was indeed safe and growing up healthy as well. I'll admit, even though it's petty, I enjoyed seeing pictures of her shunning her father's attention. She never looked happy in pictures with him, not like she was scared or anything, just indifferent to him. It might have been wishful thinking or seeing what I wanted to see, but it's the little things that get you through something like this. So, it's the day I'm going to court to file my papers, to get the ball rolling on getting involved in my daughter's life, and my mother sits me down. I had kept her up to date on everything. My mother has always been there for me, been a very supportive mother. She looks at me and says, my son, do you remember the constant court battles with your father? How you felt after we went to family court every time? How much you hated that man when you were growing up? So I answered yes. My mother continues, now imagine you didn't know that man at all. He was a stranger to you, telling you that everything you knew in your life was a lie, that the man you knew and loved as a father wasn't your real father, and this man your mother is scared of and loathes is trying to take you from your family. Can you really say you love this little girl and want the best for her if you go and absolutely shatter the world that has been built for her? And it was then I actually realized just what my mother was saying. All of the years, if courtroom drama, fighting in the waiting area, the feelings of being lost and not knowing why my father hated me so much all came flooding back, and I realized I couldn't put her through something worse than what I went through. Summary: knocked a girl up on the first date. Relationship failed. She told my daughter that someone else was her father. When confronted by me, she went into hiding. And to not hurt my daughter, I decided to not pursue family court because my ex is psycho and I don't want my daughter to undergo the psychological damage I did as a child. Worst part is, I can't watch her grow up over Facebook anymore either. Open bracket. Update. Thank you all for the mostly overwhelming support. I've taken everything you all have said into consideration. I do already have all of our past communication saved and sitting in a manila envelope. So don't worry, I'm prepared and hoping she comes looking for me one day. I didn't think my story would get so much attention, and really, all of your kind words have meant so much to me. Her birthday is this week, so I've been thinking about her a lot this week and getting my story out, and having overwhelming positive support has really helped me out of the dumps. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you Reddit. Just in case there are dads in here that might be interested, I'm a 47-year-old guy whose dad left my mom when I was 1 year, mutually/agreeably, to be with his new wife and never came back. He actually lived just one town over, and I spent my youth meeting people who knew my dad. I had one strange encounter when I worked at the video rental store where he came in, told me his name, and asked for a movie on hold. I was too nervous to say anything, and I didn't want to start a scene there in the store, so I'm pretty sure he had no idea who I was. He paid child support on the reg, but other than that, no contact whatsoever. The thing I want any similar dads out here to know is this: your kids may have a different set of baggage than I do, ESP if you left when they were older, but in my case I have no hard feelings. None. I had plenty of love and attention, and also plenty of conflict with male adults during my mom's dating phase. That shit fucked me up. But hearing stories about my dad to me is no different than hearing stories about a crazy uncle I've never met who lives in Mexico. My bio dad is not something I miss, or really even think about. I'm a dad myself now, and have come close to starting marriages with the wrong person many times. I totally get how that, coupled with an unplanned pregnancy, can easily happen. It could be me. I hate the idea that there might be someone out there who thinks I hate him, when that is not the case. I don't want to be the source of some stranger's apprehension, angst, regret, or shame when that is not my story. It pains me to think my dad has fear or stress about me. Disappeared dads, do not assume the worst. I'm a deadbeat dad, but let me take a second to explain. I just shared this story on a similar AskReddit thread. I became a father in September 2013. I have only seen my baby girl once. Throughout the pregnancy, the mother and I had conflicting views on what we wanted to do. Maybe it was selfish of me, but I did not think it was possible for us to raise a kid at 17. I had too much growing up on my own to do. I played sports, was head of clubs, worked part-time, and was accepted into a prestigious college with honors. I was also suspicious because she was talking to her ex, and I had used a condom. I advocated for adoption. It escalated, and soon it got to the point where she told me either you are there 100% of the time, or not at all. This caused a huge emotional struggle within me. Do I give up everything I have worked so hard for? First family member to go to college, to raise my child in a toxic situation with the mother? I'm obviously biased, but I chose the latter option. Since that day, the mother has blocked all forms of communication with me. This has something that has always bothered me even 4 years later. I'm about to be a senior in college. I ended up going to college halfway across the country, partially because of the great program they had, but also partially because I wanted to get away from it all. As a sports management major, I have really redefined myself here. I have worked for the professional sports team here for 3 years. I have interned at a sports agency, and I have actually been working on starting my own venture. However, this whole situation hasn't failed to come back around to me. Just 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from the state government asking me to put my baby that I haven't seen on my medical insurance. Throughout this whole process, I, as the father, have been through hell and back emotionally. I love my baby girl so much, yet when I see the only picture I have of her, I feel nothing. There is no bond I have, because I have not been able to see her due to the mother and her wishes. I wondered back then if I was ever going to get out of this godforsaken town and begin my life. Turns out, it already had begun. If anybody out there is reading this, the advice I'm going to give you may seem hypocritical. Have sex. Do it. Enjoy your life. It is possibly the best feeling in the world. Just be sure that you are safe and you are smart. When you are faced with a situation as sensitive as this, you can either let it destroy you, or you can let it define you. Since this whole thing has happened, I have become an advocate at my school. Shared others my story. I hope one day I will be able to hold my baby girl in my arms and tell her I love her. That is all I ask. Edit. I know this post has hit a nerve with a lot of people, and for that I apologize. I realize that it isn't ethical, responsible, or noble at all what I did. At the time, as well as when I tell people about it, it has made me feel selfish, entitled, and a coward. I heard it all when I was 17 too. If anything, I hope that sharing my story will at least impact one person to do the right thing if they are in this situation, and do the right thing that I know I can't do. I answered Op's question. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.